measured me. I thought maybe that was indicative that I was going to be coming back. But anyway, it was a real, one of those sort of Katharine Hepburn kind of old movie experiences, that screen testing, and very exciting. And then I got the phone call from Brian.
And how does it feel watching it 40 years later with a packed house, laughing and clapping all the way through it?
Well, it's certainly different from the first time I saw it. The house of two other people.
Do you remember what cinema it was?
It was in New York. I don't remember actually, and it was actually, truth to tell, it was more than two people, but because it was, I think, opening night, but I can't remember what theater it was. I was trying to remember. Anybody remember anything at all? 40 years.
We saw it in Westwood.
Yeah, the premiere was in Westwood. Yeah.
Westwood, yeah.
Oh.
And Halloween. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Oh, was it Halloween?
Yeah.
You were 7.
Yes, I remember.
I was busy trick-or-treating.
Now, I'm going to get out of this man's life, but I think you'll agree, that was an amazing, showing of that movie, but to sit there and see Gerrit Graham getting laughs and applause with every single line.
I want to know sometimes if you're laughing with me or against.
With, yeah, it's an incredible performance, Gerrit.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Now, you've worked with Brian twice before this.
That's right. Yeah.
Greetings and hi, Mom.
Right. I was a sophomore at Columbia University in New York City, and I had been made general manager of the Columbia Players, basically because nobody else wanted the gig. And it was the extracurricular theater group. And one day I was down in the Players' office during a non-production period, which was extremely unusual that I was down there at all. And the phone rang, and it was this guy saying, I was in the Players 10 years ago, so I thought, for old time's sake, you guys might be willing to help me with the, you wanted extras, I think, and maybe a little wardrobe stuff. And I said, sure. And he said, I would also be happy if you could find me a couple, 3 actors, experienced actors, particularly with comedic experience. People in the fine arts program there, or at the Minor Latham Playhouse across the street at Barnard. And if you find people like that, will you send them down to see me? And I said, I sure will. And what was that address again, Mr. DePaula? And I never, you must guess by now that I never sent another soul down there. I went to see him myself, and ended up in the living room of the producer, who happens to be the brother of our editor, and improvised with, there was another guy named Bob who was there all the time, and a third guy sort of rotated in and out, and we just improvised on various suggestions that Brian made, and ultimately ended up with Bob De Niro and me, and a third guy named Jonathan Wharton, and Brian had a scenario put on the script, and he had certain ideas that he wanted to make sure made it in, but we improvised the entire thing. And same thing with the sequel the following year, sort of a sequel called Hi Mom.
Yes.
Yeah. By the time we got to Phantom, he just called and asked me if I wanted to play the part. And interestingly, the part he initially offered me was Swan. I don't know if you knew that.
Oh, I did. And at one point he asked me about playing, my initial offer was Winslow, and I went, I'm too little to be scary. I didn't know you. You're this little guy, little creature throwing things down from the...
Yeah.
I couldn't do what Bill Finley did with one eye. I don't know another actor could do what he did.
I didn't know anybody else that could pull off beef.
Well, I was, young, dumb, and full of cum, as they say. I didn't really have a very clear picture of what I was doing. Brian actually had come out and auditioned musically, I think it was, for him and for Paul. And I don't know if you remember this. You guys kept saying, "Well, that was good, but can you make it a little more sort of bigger, more demonstrative?" And finally, the word they settled on was flamboyant. Could you make it a little more flamboyant? Which was, of course, code at the time for gay. And I said, "Oh, what do you mean, like this?" Bingo! Backhand, Brian said, "Yes." And it was, to me, it was just cheap shtick, you know. But it turned out to be an actual character. It was just something in me. I don't know what that says about my sick brain, but it was just a character that came out fully formed. I didn't, because of the earlier films I'd done with Brian and that relationship, I trusted him and he trusted me that we would be able to satisfy each other's aims and intentions. So it was, I had a great deal of freedom to do whatever I wanted, and a lot of those lines in the scenes with George Memley. And I must say here at this point, those scenes are funny because there were two people involved. One was me and the other was George Memley. And those scenes would not have worked without George. It was what you might call a double act. But a lot of lines that are among people's favorites, like "Dry Up, Tubbo," and "Bones." Dry up, Tubbo. And I interrupt that were my lines. They were improvised. It didn't strike me at the time as interesting or difficult or anything. That's too dumb, you know.
I would love to interrupt just to tell you something that you probably won't tell you, and I assume you remember. But when we shot The Life at Last number, you had, I think, 103 temperature. You were so sick you couldn't stand up.
That's it. I don't remember being sick. I've heard this. I've been told this a number of times. I have no recollection. Certainly had a 101 fever or something.
Because you were
Flu. I have no recollection of that whatsoever. A good thing, probably.
He was delusional. He was so sick he couldn't. He was so sick he doesn't remember being sick. You were horribly ill, and you walked out on stage in front of the camera, and you came alive, and you were just. And it's brilliant. It's brilliant.
Well, thank you. Thanks very much.
I mean, I was going to ask you, your physical performance on stage, you're like a man possessed. Was there any like stage performers at the time or any rock stars that you took inspiration from?
No, my opinion is that they took inspiration from me. I'm a big music fan, I'm a big rock fan, but except for sort of burlesque comedy acts, like there was a guy named Joe Bryant. You might remember Joe Bryant. Are you kidding me? Come on. Joe Bryant fan? No. Wow. There's a few sort of acts that have been sort of showbized up, if you know what I mean. But because I'd been a record reviewer for a while, I did have a sense that we were goofing on the music industry. We were goofing on the rock stars with inflated egos. But I didn't. It wasn't uppermost in my mind. I was just having fun. Peter and I have been friends for a long time, and the four of us, the Juicy Fruits and me, we just had a million laughs all the time. It was just a great, happy set for us. Anyway, we made fun of Brian a lot, as I remember. And did I even begin to answer your question?
We were just saying that you were brilliant, Gerrit.
But yes, I can agree with that. Well, I'm struck. Actually, this time, for the first time ever, watching it, I thought I was funny. Actors are generally dissatisfied with their work if you become too satisfied, too happy about your own work, you become complacent, and then you stop trying to be better, stop trying to reach for a better performance and everything. Is that not so? I'm looking at you, my dear. Yes. But at this time, I was able to see it with more objectivity, and it is pretty goddamn funny, I have to say.
Well, I'm going to do a good segue to our next guest in a second, but I like that. But one of the things that is amazing about it, and on the basis of tonight, especially in terms of people who had seen it for the first time, is it does play like sort of contemporary audiences, and I think that must be amazing to sit there and watch it now and be getting laughs and applause with every single line.
Well, I think funny is funny. In the context of a rock musical or a stand-up routine, whatever it is funny. I don't think it's hidebound by the period, the time period it's in, or the subject matter of whatever the study is in general. Laurel and Hardy are still funny as hell. You know what I mean? It just, if you're lucky enough to acquit yourself of something truly funny, that's a fortunate thing, I would say. That's a fortunate thing. The great actor, I can't remember his name, he's the great star of the Yiddish theater in New York. As he lay dying, said, people were saying, oh, it must be hard to die. He said, no, dying is easy. Comedy is hard. And I'm fortunate to say, I never found it hard. It was just, it was fun to make fun, I guess.
Okay.